I like Destiny and I like Ben Shapiro. And I kind of joke, like, those are two people that I watch. Now,
how everything Destiny stands for is counter to Trump. And
I know.
But so then in what sense do you relate to Destiny more?
I'm trying to show you the nuance. Well, things I like about Destiny.
Yeah, what sense do you relate to him?
He's authentic. He's no bullshit. He is...
One of the things that I've said before, I've said this a lot, and I'll continue to reiterate this, is people think that we're in a populist moment in the United States. I thought that for a long time too, or that we need like extremists. I don't think you need extremists. We watched somebody who explained this, and I thought the explanation was really good, and I super agree with this. It's not that we need extremists. We just need people who can message extremely. But even if you have moderate policy, if you message moderate policy extremely, then you will be successful, I think. So like if you say, for instance, we need to get rid of all healthcare, okay? We need to stop wasting our fucking money on paying for poor people's healthcare, as on the right. And then in the middle, if you say, well, maybe we should have like a public option. And then on the left, if you go, we need socialized healthcare for every American in this country, people will look at those three messages and go, well, people like the left and the right one more, so the extremist messaging is more popular. But I think in reality, the issue is that moderates or center-left people in this case just aren't willing to stand strong on the things that they believe in. And they are very fickle and fair weather and cowardly when it comes to ardently defending their messaging. I think that's a big issue. It sounds like she's somebody who likes messaging. So she likes my delivery. She's about to, well, maybe she will accurately know but I'm gonna say she's about to try to search for policy reasons why she likes me and Ben, but that's not even true actually. She's just pointing out like, oh, I like their demeanors. That's basically what she's saying.
Destiny.
Yeah,
he's
what do you relate to him?
He's authentic. He's no bullshit. He is... I feel like he's a classical liberal. Sorry, that was the point that I was trying to make, is right in the introduction.
Like she's saying classical liberal. I mean, in a strict sense, really everybody in America is a classical liberal, unless you're on the extremes of the political spectrum. But it's not really a political reason why she likes my stuff. It's going to be because it's just going to be because of my messaging.
Of that conversation. I didn't watch it recently, but so I'm not primed exactly on what they said, but it stuck out to me so much. It was the first question like to describe their political worldview or something, and it was almost identical. And so when we're talking about the people who want to limit legal immigration, there's a real strain of that on the left, on the populist left. This is something that goes across demographics, right? There's a large segment of the Black community that is against legal and illegal immigration.
Yeah,
exactly. Bernie, there you go, exactly. And so it's like my ideal political coalition, and I know like I'm not trying to add third parties and stuff. I don't think that would go over easy or well or whatever. But like if everyone were to realign, that it were the Destinies and the Ben Shapiros and the people
but they're
institutionalists and the elitists versus the populists and the anti-institutionalists. Those are the two frames that I'm sort of looking at the political sphere through right now, which again, I see those on both sides.
Can we use Destiny then as an example? Then what's stopping you from going the Destiny route with respect to your politics? Because, to your point, for the longest
time, I share a lot of politics with Destiny.
What I mean is in terms, but also like his advocacy and how he voted. Like if you really identify with Destiny, let's use him as a model for your politics in the sense, what is preventing you?
Because there are more people on the Republican side who message like me than there are people on the left side who message like me. Also, when I say this, by the way, I'm not even necessarily saying everybody should message like me. I don't even know if that would be a successful strategy for the Democrats, but that's the answer, regardless of what she says.
From voting for Democrats as he's done consistently as campaigning and advocating.
What's the difference between messaging and optics to you? As a chronic optics Andy, I feel like what you just said has been the point we optics-obsessed fools have been trying to make. Messaging and optics are similar. The problem with you optics-obsessed fools is when you guys think of optics, your optics conversation is literally restricted to how are ways that other people can make me look bad. And that's the start and stop of your optics. That's all you think about. And so you use it as a restraint mechanism. But on the conservative side, I think optics are looked at as like a launch mechanism. Like, how do we message in a way that keeps us so aligned with each other and that lets us fight through and push through literally every fucking thing in the world, as opposed to how is it like a limiting mechanism?
For Democrats over Republicans, because he also has culture war issues with the left, but he eventually came to the conclusion, and not to which point I know people, traffic and culture war issues, but Destiny came to the point, it just doesn't matter when it comes time to vote. That culture issues, as frustrating as they are, and he still has them, when you're voting, the politicians are just objectively 10 million times more important, and the policies are 10 million times more important. So what is keeping you, if you identify with him and your politics identify with him, from taking that step, going like, oh, I can make my culture war case here, but when it comes time to vote, just vote for the better of the two parties? That makes sense? You understand what I'm asking?
It does.
Michael Madsen died, and I bet you won't know who it is at first, but then realize who it is and be upset. Oh, Michael Madsen. He was the... was he the guy who cut the dude's ear off in Reservoir Dogs? I just read that earlier today. But it looked like I legitimately was thinking about it, right? See, if I was the master manipulator, that's what I would do all the time. Do you see that? Do you see that master manipulation right there?
It does make sense. So I should be taking notes here because I keep losing my... It's been a long day for me, folks. It did an overnighter and came straight through here. So, like I said, I share a lot of values and whatever with... Values. I know Destiny's not seen as the most moral guy around, but I agree with... Values. He has strongly held beliefs, yeah, and so I agree with a lot of his politics, not all of them. And
you can't say Destiny's the most moral guy around. Votes for Trump, epic.
I guess like the difference that I see is like Destiny he sees himself affirmatively as a Democrat, and this is where again.
See, one of the issues that she's running into, because we spend so much time wrapping ourselves in the aesthetic of morals, morality, and the aesthetic of politics, and the aesthetic of principles, and the aesthetic of policies. She's trying to figure out, like, okay, why don't I align with him politically versus other people? And she's going through the answers that she thinks she should be giving, because what people don't want to say for Donald Trump is that, like, I just kind of think Donald Trump is funny, and I kind of think the woke people are cringe. And that's now, to be fair, I've watched all of 2 minutes of her speaking. But that, I feel like that is an answer for a huge chunk of people. And they might go swimming to the ocean of their mind to try to figure out, like, okay, fuck, why do I like Trump? Well, maybe illegal immigration is kind of, it's like, you live in Montana. Okay, well, illegal immigration from Canada. It's like, you like him because he's epic, and you think the other people are cringe and gay. Yeah, maybe. But that doesn't sound good to say, you know?
Again, I keep coming back to this as like, I just don't anymore. So it's not like the obvious thing. Like, so, and for a while, that is what I was doing, was like, I'm going to fight this out on the left. And again, to a certain extent, and I've been told, like, at a certain point, like when everyone on the left is basically telling you, you are not one of us. There's people who say, oh, well, you can't let other people define your politics. But I think there's some truth to that, which is like,
yes, hold on,
if we are not, if we don't want the same things, we're not like, let's go Wick.
Yeah, sorry. I have to really put the pin in here. If you have every day people saying you're conservative, oh, you hold this position, you're conservative, you're a Trump voter, you're bad guy, you're secretly crypto-fascist. Eventually people are going to be like, fuck it, yeah, I am, fuck it, okay, sure, you're going to call me conservative all day? I'm a conservative now.
Wait, what is, hold on. She also likes loaner box. I think Zionism has a large part in it, and the far left pushes her away. Wait, is she Jewish? Why can't I identify Jewish people at all? Maybe I should start doing the ethno-guesser.
And I think that happens a lot. And when we see Trump's strongest soldiers in your guys' chat, right? It's like, oh, she's conservative. She's always conservative. You can never win her back, right? And then you have people say,
not my chat.
Oh, look, I understand, right? But it's better. I can't tell.
It is acceptability of people who enjoy not being policed on the left. You are walking on eggshells everywhere you go. It is fucking annoying. Yeah, I probably downplay that just because in my, like, I enjoy conflict and I like fighting with people. And that's like a more enjoyable experience for me. And I have no problem putting myself in those situations. And most people probably don't. Most people are probably more higher in agreeability. So it's not an enjoyable experience, so that actually weighs on them a lot more. But if people would at least admit that, we could have a conversation about it. But
I can't tell.
Good. When I rewatch this, I'll be watching from Hutch's.
But I hear this all the time.
Hey.
It's a very loud contingent. It may not even be a majority, but it's a very loud contingent. They'll be like, oh, they're just conservative. Eventually, people are gonna just believe you. Why? So why do you do this?
Well, let me say that. So okay. So I understand what I think is probably the frustration that you guys are feeling with what Wick just said, and I share it to an extent, which is like that shouldn't be enough to make you just like change all your worldview, right, or just like change your affiliation. Which is why I really do want to stress that isn't what happened for me. This was a multi-year process of my affiliation eventually changing to independent, again, not to Republican, right? And so I didn't just become a conservative, but what that did do, what in 2021, everyone telling me that I was far right and all this stuff, because Zionism is far right, and God forbid I brought the Zionism thing back. I don't want to open that can of worms, but...
Well, I was going to bring it back because you mentioned Ben Shapiro and Destiny, and that's another through line between them. And like, what do Destiny and Ben Shapiro share in common? They both support Israel. So I mean,
no, but so Pisco, you should listen to the interview, because again, they do talk really fast. The intro to the interview is them describing their political worldview, and it's almost identical. It's belief in capitalistic free markets. It's belief in individual rights.
It's like liberal versus illiberal. It's like kind of what it boils down to. It's just like
right. It's liberalism and conservatism of conserving liberalism. And so those are the values that I believe are...
I don't know if any of these people watch me anymore, but the follow through to that is this is why I don't do the top line agreements anymore. And I say we need to do examples, because I don't ever want a person to think, oh, Destiny, I agree with like all of the shit that he says. I think we're actually aligned a lot kind of on our core values. And it's like, oh, really? Tell me some of your political positions. I struggled with rent this month because I donated $40,000 to the Alligator Alcatraz prison because I thought it was super epic. Yesterday, I protested at the airport where Abrego Garcia was flown back in on because I think that him and his entire family should be tortured indefinitely in El Salvador. And I'm cheering for all of the ships that are flying weapons that we were going to send to Ukraine down to Israel instead, because they definitely need the additional help fighting all of the homeless Palestinians. It's like, okay, well, I don't know where exactly we're in total alignment on, but thanks, I guess, for the for the agreement
that I hold, core. And do I think that the Trump administration is currently upholding all of those values? No. So should that be enough for me to say I got my vote? Like, yeah, maybe, sure.
Yeah, but Tally, I think I just want to spend a little bit. That doesn't really mean very much, right? Like that's a very meaningless, I think, type of agreement to have with someone, at least for the most part, right? Now, if I'm having an abstract discussion with somebody and they say, like,
wait, what's the meaning?
disagree,
Yeah,
I think it's extremely meaningless that Ben Shapiro and Destiny have, generally speaking, a classically liberal worldview, as you described it. The reason I say that that's meaningless is because, for instance, in many respects, if I call myself a Christian and someone else calls themselves a Christian, but I'm the kind of like hippie, like Jesus loves everyone and I go to gay pride parades kind of Christian, and you're the type of Christian who thinks we should kill all gay people, then it's like, yeah, I guess we're both Christian, but like, is that really meaningful? We have such a radically different interpretation.
Right, but of course they didn't
right?
just say like we're both Christian or both liberals. They spelled out their worldviews, and when people are doing that, it's in the most idealistic form, right? But and this is the thing too about like Ben Shapiro. Again, I don't agree with him on everything because he is a partisan Republican in ways that I'm not. That he believes in certain things that I'm not bought into. So another thing about like the policy thing, and it's like this is a shortcoming, and it's a really valid line of attack. But like, I don't know enough about everything, right? I mean, with the way that bills are written and stuff, like most senators, most of their committees and stuff aren't even reading all of these things. But so my point being, I'm not just instantly adopting what the right says is a good policy or principle either. Like there are certain instincts of mine that have changed. Like when I was on the left, I supported all social programs with no concept of where the money comes from. And I heard Hutch talk about this, and it makes people very angry. But now I do have that immediate response of how do we pay for this? That matters, right? And so these are things that make me trend in the more conservative direction. But Ben Shapiro.
When was this pop? So how do you possibly square that away with the horrible deficit rape that's happening right now with this new budget? Because you like to be combative, what do you do when you adopt a position you hate, but you can't abandon it in that moment because you're literally defending your ability to reason and make judgment calls? I don't understand how those two sentences connect to each other. The biggest amount of flexibility that I'm afforded is because I don't cleanly map onto or identify strongly with any political movement or group. It gives me a lot of flexibility to change my opinion if I think I don't agree with something. But then obviously there's the downside of I don't have any big communities that I can call home.
Shapiro, and like maybe I'm going to be Ben Shapiro's strongest soldier. I'm probably his only soldier in this chat over here. But Ben Shapiro, he supports Trump, right? And I think that it was sort of weaselly because he was very anti-Trump in the beginning. And even this, if you guys recall, in the beginning of the 2024 election, it wasn't a given that Trump was going to win. There were people who were pushing, right, for some of the other candidates. And so I think it's funny. I think it's like lame and chicken that they then just go along with it. But that's also what we're like what you guys are kind of asking for on the left is like you could talk a big game, but you need to get behind the nominee, right? Whoever it is, type of thing.
That's exactly what you're doing with Trump, like, and a million times worse, a billion times worse.
Thing, right? Like Mamdani, well, it doesn't matter because he won the primary, and so we need to all get behind him. And I'm not saying that Zoran Mamdani is the same thing as Donald Trump. That's not the equivalence that I'm trying to make here. So I have those frustrations with someone like Ben Shapiro. But Ben Shapiro was calling out the tariffs, like was calling out the Doge efforts, calls these things out in his, which I'm sure you guys don't watch his show, so you might as well just take my word for it.
No.
That's so crazy. Like, she's like applying the leftist framing to the left, but she's not applying the same framing on the right. She's like, on the left, it's really cringe that you guys are saying we got to get behind the candidate no matter what. But on the right, Ben Shapiro calls things out. Yeah, and then what does he do? He supports the candidate. He does get behind it no matter what. An easy question to ask her is, do you think that there are any amount of things that Donald Trump could have said or done prior to the primary, or I'm sorry, prior to the election, where Ben Shapiro wouldn't have endorsed Trump for president? Like,
He did call it theirs.
We watched Ben Shapiro, but Ben Shapiro's very identitarian, and I think it gets into a super
I don't
chat
view it that way.
From Doobie. Well, this is a super chat from Doobie, not my words, his. He says, please accept my sincerest apologies for my misunderstanding earlier. So first is to Wick, why shouldn't we shame people who voted for a traitorous rapist who was clear about his intention to gut programs people rely on? If this causes them to double down after an almost 6-month train wreck, they're just voting on vibes and not worth speaking to in depth anyway. You make more progress discussing politics at all, just be chill and play video games, maybe buy them a couple gifts around the holidays. And this is the part about identity. You support a state and ideology that explicitly centers around the Jewish identity. Why is identitarianism?
Yeah, see, Doobie is obsessed with Israel, and he's made this line of attack against me about like clutching my pearls about anti-Semitism now on 2 different occasions when I didn't say anything in that direction. So Doobie is like an example of the sort of horseshoe of the right and left coming together that I'm concerned with. And by the way, we're talking about the isolationist sort of growing populist.
Wait, somebody said she voted for Kamala? Oh, did she? Wait, so everyone in chat was saying this person voted for Trump. Am I crazy?
Trend happening on the right and the left. People like to see Israel as separate from that, right? And because of what's going on now, and there's a lot of people who like either A, don't care about.
No, she didn't. She did not. She voted for Trump Destiny. Thomas being retarded. Oh.
Foreign aid and stuff like this, who say, well, I care.
Oh yeah, the name of the stream is Trump Voter Intervention.
Because it's my tax dollars. Like suddenly Israel is the one part of the budget that they're concerned about. But B, it is part of that same, in my opinion, is part of that same strain of isolationism and stuff like that. And so yes, that's an issue that I have, and it does affect me personally.
This whole conversation about her voting. Oh wait, sorry, wrong message. Destiny, can you give a specific policy or plan on what the Democrats or general lawmakers need to do to fix America? It has to be some coordinated thing from all of your different levels of stuff. That's what it has to be. And there has to be somebody willing to start that project. That's more important than any individual. It's like the whole system, right? That's the thing that has to happen. Like I can give an example from my perspective, but I don't know how this could necessarily play out in the world, but like it might be something like this. Okay, so let's say that I'm about to do a research stream on the lab leak stuff. Okay, and I just did a thing on vaccines, right? Maybe there is a staffer for a Democrat lawmaker that watches my stream. Okay, maybe that guy emails me and he says something along the lines of like, hey, I noticed that you're doing research for this thing. There is an upcoming Senate hearing or Congressional House hearing with RFK. Just curious, what do you think are good questions to ask him? Good gotcha questions. And maybe they email me and like 5 other people in media or research or whatever, and then they get those questions and then they give them to their person, they write them down. It's like, okay, you go into that congressional hearing and you do it. Now on the back of that, they also have connections with people that work in media, like, hey, giving you a heads up at maybe you reach out to a couple conservative outlets you think are friendly, and then some liberal ones like, hey, here are some big gotcha questions that might get dropped today at this hearing. You might want to cover this or whatever. And these people have relationships with it. It's like, oh, okay, there's going to be some brutal questions for this guy about this particular thing. And so maybe from one stream, a staffer passes on a question to a lawmaker who goes to one of these congressional hearings, asks a brutal question, gets a good TikTok clip. That gets posted by a couple other people in alternative media. A couple articles get written about it in the liberal publications that they are friendly with. And then that resonance gets picked up by maybe a couple other lawmakers that roast RFK on a particular thing. And then that talking point kind of like makes it through some of the mainstream media shows where other people kind of like that would be that's an example of that's a very toned down version of what conservatives have been operating with for the past decade. That's how the conservative whole MAGA shit, that's how that works. Okay. But some kind of apparatus like that functioning in the Democrat, it would take somebody behind the scenes who is like deliberately and intentionally trying to craft that sort of cohesive, like functioning apparatus. But is that how Democrats operate? No. The Democratic machine is broken. Okay, it's completely fucked. We need the Clintons back. Okay, Destiny. First section of this. What makes Republicans do that so easily? Intention. They have people who have intentionally tried to do stuff like that. It's like their goal. Charlie Kirk and all these people do this intentionally. Is this even related to what I said? Who linked this? Oh, that Tally person did vote for Trump. Jesus. Okay. I've been thinking a lot recently about the value of specificity in politics and messaging. Zoran Mamdani isn't just charismatic, he's charismatically specific. In his campaign videos, he'll walk through city bodegas to tell voters how he might tweak the details of urban retail policy. Representative Marie Glusenkamp Perez, a rising star in the Democratic Party, went viral after the election with a straight-to-camera campaign to fix an esoteric regulation that barred daycare workers from peeling bananas to feed infants. She painstakingly explained that peeling fruit technically violated food processing standards, so young kids risked going hungry because their teachers were afraid of anti-peeling lawsuits. On the Right of Center podcast, Flagrant, Pete Buttigieg also went viral, not by offering a familiar criticism of Donald Trump, but rather by giving a detailed day-in-the-life description of what America would look like if sensible liberal ideas won out. Mamdani, MGP, and Buttigieg represent distinct corners of the Democratic tent, but their communication successes all borrow from the same lesson. In politics today, specificity is a superpower. Specificity tells voters, I care so much about your frustration that I've started to deeply understand the deals with finance. Okay, sure. I mean, like, he's right. These are good messaging points, but this isn't it. This isn't the only thing. You see people succeed on things like this, and you think it's the only thing. But the difference would be that if this was happening on the Republican side, whatever Mamdani says or whatever Pete Buttigieg says would be repeated by the actual president and other people in Congress and every liberal and mainstream media and all of the alternative media people and all of the social media platforms. And then that's how their news cycles are created. That's what the Republicans do. You're looking for that amplification from all of your arenas that are supposed to be your political allies, which doesn't happen. That's just that the Democrats just don't do that.
Personally, as a Jew, and this is a conversation that I'm not really.
Since birthright citizenship is under attack, couldn't any U.S. citizen that was born here, even if they were from multi-generational American families, be stripped of citizenship? So, one thing. First of all, birthright citizenship is not under attack. Birthright citizenship is gone in the United States. Now your citizenship or your birthright citizenship by soil is gone in 26 days or whatever. Now it's just citizenship through nationality unless the courts bring it back. Okay, number one. Number two, it's not retroactive. It's just looking forward. So it's not going to undo people's citizenship. It's just going forward.
That's an issue that I have. And it does affect me personally as a Jew. And this is a conversation that I'm not really inclined to go down because I don't think it's an audience that's going to be very open to it. But yes, anti-Semitism on the left and the right is a huge concern of mine. A really big concern of mine.
I think that we're getting like super far flung from kind of what my original point was, right? Which is that
I forgot. The start.
We're quick.
That's fine.
Go somewhere else. Go ahead.
Well, Wick, what are you talking? She changed the subject, not me, Wick. We had a clear through line. I had a very clear question. Okay. Now, my question and kind of the point that I brought up was that you said, okay, like I wish that we could live in a world where, I guess Ben Shapiro and Destiny were kind of like the centers of the Overton window because they have the same kind of foundational political philosophy, right, of this, classical liberalism as you would describe it. But the challenge that I have is that was a debate between Ben and Destiny, right? That Ben Shapiro and Destiny have truthfully a radically different worldview. I suppose outside of the issue of Israel, which I'm sure that they have some disagreements on that. It's been a while since I watched the debate.
They had a lot of disagreements about that.
Yeah, and similarly, all four of the main hosts on the show we would call ourselves liberals, but even the four of us have a greatly now. Of course, we find a solidarity in at least voting for the Democratic Party, but I don't find that the Venn diagram in an applied and a practical sense between like the type of liberal like Ben Shapiro and the type of liberal like Destiny. That is not close to a circle, right? That is like the tiniest sliver of actual political agreement between the two. Like we respect the Constitution, equality under the law.
I remember this girl from Twitter Spaces. She was liberal as fuck, but after October 7th, she slowly started to change. But she was liberal like you, listening to both. If you're a Jew who's super plugged into social media in the United States, especially if you're younger, after October 7th, I think you would have a really hard time supporting a lot of stuff. I think that would be a tough call. So for instance, I don't think that New York mayor position, I don't think that matters much for like foreign policy. So I really don't give a fuck that much about Mamdani and his cringe positions on whatever the fuck. He could be the mayor of New York, that's fine or whatever. But like if you were Jewish in New York, I think you should still support the mayor. I think Eric Adams has a whole bunch of problems, but that's probably a really tough vote. When you have people on the left who are okay amplifying the most unhinged calls to violence or support of violence related to anything with Israel or in some ways Jewish people, supporting that is a tough call. The far left and their hijacking of the party messaging is incredibly unhinged.
That's foundational for me.
Well, but Tally, again, we're back to the point of people, actually elected Democrats, do respect the Constitution and do actually have these beliefs of equality under the law, this and that, right? Like,
He's calling Ben Shapiro unprincipled, by the way. He's a hypocrite. He claims to believe in these liberal values, these foundational underpinnings that you're stressing, but he supported Donald Trump, who is currently, the White House, they are exploring options as far as potentially arresting and deporting Zohran Mamdani. They're talking about it openly.
Yeah, that's insane. I would, listen, if Ben Shapiro came out in support of that, I think that's horrible.
He does, but I mean,
does he support that?
But Tally, Hutch, we can't get sidetracked for the 100th time. Tally, directly address the point that I don't find that there's actually legitimate agreement between these two people.
Sure. So again,
in a meaningful way.
Sure. I think there is, but
You did not read the Trump EO. It preserves citizenship for children born in the U.S. to parents who are U.S. citizens, parents who are lawful permanent residents, and parents in the U.S. with non-temporary legal status. There is no total end to birthright. That is an end to when we talk about birthright citizenship in the U.S., we're talking about birthright citizenship born on American soil. That's what we shorthand it to birthright citizenship, but that's what we're really talking about. And that is effectively over. You restated my position in more words. You need a citizen a parent with citizenship or a parent who's a lawful permanent resident. I don't know about the non-temporary legal status. I don't remember if that was called out in the EO, but you have to have a parent who's a citizenship or a green card holder now to be considered a citizen when you're born.
But I hear you. Like they have lots of
It just seems like if the Democrats could do it, they would. What the fuck is stopping them? I personally think it's how the Democrats define themselves. We were the party of social issues. Nearly all social values are unanimously agreed upon, and this is not the case of economic, foreign, or gun issues. Republicans never changed. You have to have somebody to do it. I think at this point we're high enough and we're connected enough and we've like been in these circles enough, or at least I have been, and then we kind of can see a little bit how the cheese is made. Is that the expression? Sometimes people assume that politics just kind of happens inevitably. Like it happens inevitably, and if things are good, they'll happen inevitably because somebody will do them. And that's not the case. It takes a person, it takes people to do these things. And I don't know if the Democratic Party has a person or people who are willing to go out, how the sausage is made, who are willing to go out and do those things. Like Charlie Kirk was one guy who was willing to go out and do what he did, and he did a lot for the Republican Party. He accomplished an amazing amount of things for the Republican Party. And you know, the left doesn't have right now those types of people who are willing to do things for political power for whatever reason. It's more for social credit. Like we don't have a Steve Bannon or a Roger Stone, and conservatives don't have a Hassan Piker or a Brianna Joy Gray. Conservatives don't have strong conservative people who don't support the candidate. They're called Never Trump Republicans, and they all literally fade away immediately as soon as they declare their lack of support for the party. So
again,
in a meaningful way.
Sure. I think there is, but I hear you. Like they have lots of meaningful differences, right? And the parties that they each are loyal to have radically different approaches, right? And
did you see what Trump said about using the people at Alligator Alcatraz as workers for farmers? He floated that during a press announcement as per the Jessica Gill front. I didn't hear it, but it wouldn't surprise me.
And policy. So I agree with you. This gets back to the answer that is not satisfying. I'm seeing a different
conservative Hassan is Nick Fuentes, probably not at all. Nick Fuentes absolutely supported Trump into the election. Now he's pissed off now because of all the Israel simping shit, but these guys were, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure they supported voting for Trump. I don't think Nick Fuentes ever told you to vote blue or to not vote at all, but
answer that is not satisfying. I'm seeing a different stratification of politics. And so
he was pushing an out vote, was he? Huh. Maybe Fuentes didn't. If Fuentes didn't, though, it was probably more a consequence of him like losing all of his political status than anything else. Because at his peak, Fuentes was literally inviting, when he was doing AFPAC and shit, he was literally inviting Republican congressmen and shit. He had a fucking dinner with Trump, right? So maybe around this election time, maybe he wasn't a big Trump guy. Maybe he said, fuck it, don't vote. But if he did, it's probably more, I think that represents more his lack or his fall from political relevance than anything else.
Agree with you. This gets back to the answer that is not satisfying. I'm seeing.
What do you think of Trump's Middle East policy? I don't think Trump has a Middle East policy, just a collection of discrete actions that he makes depending on the person he talked to last.
A different stratification of politics. And so, and I feel trapped in the middle. Like I see basically, again, on the horseshoe, there's the center, there's the left, there's the right, and then there's the fringes meeting at the other end, okay? I see myself here, basically, at the center. I took the political compass, and I'm literally slightly below on the libertarian end. I'm right on the center line, on the left edge of the center line, okay? That was my political compass. And so that's where I see myself, basically. And yes, I see more. The frame that I'm looking through is I see more, or I wish to see more agreement, and I see more foundational agreement among the people on this sort of lower half of the horseshoe and the people on the upper half of the horseshoe. Now, maybe I'm schizophrenic, maybe I'm behind, maybe I'm ahead. I don't know, but these are the trends that I'm looking at that are motivating me and concerning me and all of these things.
Yeah, but Callie, the fringe is sitting in the White House right now. Like, I understand that not everybody that voted for Donald Trump.
To a certain extent, yes. There's people outside of the White House I'm even more concerned about. But yes, absolutely. Those influences are in the White House. And that's part of what concerns me. Like, like people like Tucker Carlson, like have a direct line. And, to say why am I concerned, like I understand the frustration of like focus more on the politicians and not on like the podcasters and whatever. And that is a fair critique. But also, with the exception of Donald Trump and his obvious name recognition, way more people are listening to what someone like Joe Rogan or Tucker Carlson has to say than any of the senators, any of the congressmen. And so I am concerned about influences, cultural influences. And that's how I'm looking at the world right now.
What is actually wrong with the end of birthright citizenship? At face value, it doesn't sound like a bad thing necessarily, so what am I missing? There's no reason to end it. That's the tradition and the history of how New World countries work. When you're trying to end it because you hate brown people, it's really fucking sus. Like, I mean, that's like the most obvious. I don't even believe you. I don't know if that question is asked in good faith. That's such an obvious thing. If somebody was like, we need to do a comprehensive reformation on how we approach immigration or citizenship or whatever in the United States, then fine. I guess that could be part of the conversation. But when it's like, we need to ban all travel from Muslim countries, we need to ban all travel from, we need to cut off travel from south of the border, we need to deport 65 million people, according to Laura Loomer, all the Hispanics in the United States. When your party is saying shit like this and you're saying shit like this, and then it's like, oh, executive order, by the way, illegally, probably, to get rid of birthright citizenship, it's highly sus. It's super ultra sus.
I don't have an election right now. You know, like we'll how would I vote tomorrow?
Don't you know?
Yeah, that's a good question.
So if we, assuming that everything that Trump has done so far was like,
yeah. So I asked this question of other people who have shared similar concerns. By the way, the concerns you raise are not the only people who has concerns. This kind of view. Econoboy said it. I agree with Econoboy. But the question is asked like this: if you had the power right now to going forward, you see what Trump has done, press a button, and new election happens. Let's say it's all
They never changed their vote. Will she?
constitutional, all legal. So put that aside.
Most civilized first world countries do not have unconditional birthright citizenship. America should be more what are you talking about? You're fucking retarded, and that's not true. Citizenship by soil map. Most new world countries, unrestricted birthright citizenship. Most new world countries have this type of citizenship. It's baked into our constitution and our amendment. Like, you can say that Europe doesn't have it, fine, but that's not where it came. That's not why we have it. It's not. We didn't copy Europe as a value here. Well, I guess the United States should be temporarily removed from this.
And replace Trump with Kamala Harris right now. Would you press that button?
I don't know.
Like, so the answer is no. If you have to think about it, the answer is no. I don't know. I don't care what they say past this. If she gives an answer, it will be Trump. It will never be Kamala. Every time.
I guess like there's a certain part of me that's like, you want to stop the bleeding, right? So like I'm sensitive to that impulse. And the other part of me, again, well, in a literal way, right? Stop the bleeding, to be able to stop some of the things that I don't like happening. And also I have real concerns with the left that I don't like, that I think.
But you at least gone from Trump, voting for Trump, and now you're saying, I don't know.
So
isn't that a shift?
Yes, certainly. Yes, that's a shift. So, fuck, I keep forgetting my train of thought. I'm really sorry.
Can I jump in real quick?
That map kind of just proved you wrong. What are you talking about? Almost all New World countries have birthright citizenship. It was part of the culture and the founding of, as you brought people over here and they were born on territory or colonies in the New World, you want to just have them have citizenship as a virtue of being born here without having to go through any kind of like weird citizenship stuff. New World is North and South America. That's the New World, not First World. New World.
I want to say something because you appeal to the foundational, like we're talking about, was it big L or small L? But like liberal democracy, we talk about these, like Western liberal democracy, we talk about these foundational principles. I submit to you that nobody, maybe this is how I'm going to try to appeal to you, but nobody has challenged these core underpinnings like Donald Trump ever, and it's not even close. When we talk about liberal democracy, what are we talking about? A free and fair press. What is he currently doing? He got CBS to settle for probably millions of dollars over nothing.
$16 million.
He accused them of editing a Kamala interview in a way that was deceptive and used a different. It was all bullshit. Anybody can watch the video. It's just a lie. When we talk about Western liberal democracy, we talk about free and fair elections. Do I even need to go into detail about how he has challenged this? And on top of that, there's a non-zero chance that he's going to try to invoke some kind of emergency power and we just don't have an election in 2028. Anybody who doesn't think that's possible or just not paying attention. When we talk about a free and fair election, we talk about like the rule of law. Look at the assault on the rule of law currently right now with him just consistently. How many times has he ignored the courts at this point?
Who cares about New World versus not? We care about countries who are healthy and have something to lose through welfare. Oh, that's a good point. So all the conservatives who want to copy Europe on their citizenship requirements, are you guys ready to give up your Second Amendment rights? Because none of those countries have access to firearms like we do in America. So you're certainly ready to throw the guns away, right? Are you guys ready to get rid of we're going to have hate speech laws as well, right? Because most of them, I believe most European countries have some type of law in the books related to hate speech. So we're going to bring that as well, right? Social health care, we're not arguing about that anymore. I guess all of you conservative fucks are on board now with some type of socialized health care, right? Single payer, multi-payer system provided by the government, correct? All of you are going to be on board with a bunch of higher tax rates for people throughout the tax brackets. You're on board with that, right? Out of here, what an unbelievably retarded thing to say, to pretend that you want to selectively copy Europe when you could name more than 3 countries in Europe. Get the out of here. It's so retarded.
who have compelled him.
You can't defend that perspective because you're too busy defending all of the rights in America that you probably don't even have access to, or the ability to even practice.
Assault on the rule of law currently right now with him just consistently. How many times has he ignored the courts at this point who have compelled him to return people to the country so that they can have due process? I mean, how many of these foundational underpinnings does he need to just fully assault before you might come to the conclusion?
He just has to become cringe, and then they won't support him anymore. The actual policies and the actions, they never matter. They don't matter.
That this guy is just bad news. If you care about
and worse, she does think he's bad news. To
no,
be clear,
that was very compelling.
Worse news.
That's very compelling. That's very compelling. So let me. That's very compelling. I agree with you. I don't have any.
We're no longer colonies. Is it really bad if we change these things? If you want to change them, then change them the correct way, not through an executive order. Then do it the right way. Learn how to be a fucking leader. Learn how to go to your fucking Congress and get anything fucking done ever, and do it that way. I'm not against birthright. I think it gets abused. I think it should only pertain to people who are here legally when they give birth. Yeah, and I think guns get abused. That's why we have fucking school shootings. I think freedom of speech gets abused. That's why you have retards online tweeting unhinged, retarded shit all day. Yeah, welcome to any freedom that you have can be abused. Every freedom you have makes your life worse in a little bit, in a small way. That's the whole point of having a freedom. There are responsibilities and consequences, and there are I guess like privileges and pros. That's every single freedom you have is like that.
Let me. That's very compelling. I agree with you. I don't have any good response, nor do I want to counter that. I agree with you.
I could keep going, by the way.
Let me just. So with the question of like, would I tomorrow change the vote for Kamala? And my apprehension, right? And again, it's not going to satisfy anyone. Blah blah blah. I'm concerned essentially with the direction of both parties, and I feel like what I'm trying to do is just like rattle it back and forth to try to keep it somewhere in the center. And I know that's not happening, right? If anything, it's sort of like moving out further, arguably. But my concern is like I have all these concerns with the left that if the left maintains power, basically, right, this election was a check on the left's power, that I worry that the same thing that Pisco didn't like. Not that I'm saying they deserved it, but essentially, like I want a reform, I want a change, I want an ideological movement, and I know, and which is why I stepped back from the Democratic Party, because the Democrats don't owe me ideological change, right? And they don't owe me that, frankly, right? Maybe I'm just the one that changed, which, by the way, was a really hard thing for me to accept. You know, there's a lot of people who go out there and do the whole the left me thing, right? And that's very appealing, and I don't feel that way. I feel like I changed, and it's a hard thing to grapple with.
I just want to validate you.
I agree, use laws, but it does sound like you're arguing the idea that birthright should just be an unlimited thing because it's American and New World. I think that birthright is fine because it's part of our law, it's part of our history. If you want to change it, then fine. I mean, I'm amenable to having the argument, but most conservatives don't even really have the argument. They just don't want as many illegals here, or they put forth a non-argument like, well, it can be abused. That's not an argument. That's fucking retarded. Men rape people. That doesn't mean we cut everybody's fucking dicks off because you can abuse your dick. It's a stupid argument. Oh, it can be abused. So by executive order, we're just going to eradicate this thing that has centuries of history in our country. No, this is fucking stupid. You need a real argument if you want to get rid of something that's so baked into our country's history like that. That's fucking insane. Okay. Medicaid error rate exception.
Under the bill as it's drafted now, the higher your error rate, the more likely you are to get a waiver not to have to pay anything as a state.
Well, it's short term. It's for a number of years.
But why give states?
Well, you know what? You'd have to sit down with the senators to figure out why they did that. Alaska's one of them, I think.
But does that make sense to you? The
gentle lady from Pennsylvania named the states that wound up on that. I mean,
correct. The 10 states: Oregon, New Jersey.
It was a Senate amendment delayed implementation of state. And it's a delayed implementation of state cost share.
Why does that? I guess what I'm trying to understand, and you may not.
Why did they do it? Well, we're all in politics. We know why they did it in the Senate in order to get certain votes from certain states.
And if that is the case, does that not violate the very objective that you all are trying to achieve? Let me explain why, and I'll give you a chance.
It doesn't long term because it does result in a state share.
Let's say it
gives them more time to be able to get there.
Let me say it this way: the gentleman from Texas, Royce here, Texas has an error rate that hovers around 6%. So right now, under the bill, as it is proposed, Texas wouldn't necessarily, if it stays below that 6%, doesn't have to pay a state portion-based cost for SNAP. If it gets above 6%, it jumps up to 6.5%. For the next several years, the state of Texas and Texas taxpayers have to foot the bill of a state pro rata cost.
That's correct.
What if someone used your argument for slavery? Not a compelling argument, just saying it's history. They'll argue it harms the country. What's the argument? It's good for it. It's not about what's... So there are good arguments against slavery, right? Like black people are probably equal in humanity to white people. That's a decent argument to get rid of slavery, right? There are a ton of other arguments on the back of that, but that's probably, that on its own, I think is a good ethical argument against slavery. I haven't heard any good arguments against birthright citizenship. Let's say that we do some study, and let's say that next year we find out, okay, we did some research and we found out that in 1 year alone, 500,000 like anchor babies were born illegally in the United States, and they used their citizenship in, nefarious means to sponsor other legal immigrants. Then it's like, okay, fuck, well, maybe at that point, I don't know, maybe that is something that's worth revisiting or worth reconsidering. But if that's not the case, if you can't show, you would have to, the onus is on you to change the law. If you want to change a law, then the onus is on you to put forth a real, empirically validated, not hypothetical, theoretical argument. Well, can it be a bad incentive? Show it then. If it is a bad incentive, it's such a fucking horrible incentive, then show it. Demonstrate it somewhere. Demonstrate it through data somewhere. How many, how many new citizens are there in the United States with no citizen parents? Like, that should be a pretty easy thing to demonstrate, I would imagine. And then if it looks like it's an even problem, then maybe it's worth revisiting. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think we should have like a strong border. I think we should have a strong border. I think we should discourage and even expel illegal immigrants. Like, I think all that's fine. But if you want to change things like how we dole out citizenship, you need better answers. Destiny, this is just confirmation that you have no identity, and America's just a bunch of people within fake borders who have little in common. Look at Germany, look at France. Deep historical ties and borders who have a national identity. Europe wins every time. Good troll, bro.
Texas and Texas taxpayers have to foot the bill of a state pro rata cost.
That's correct.
Hold on,
They've never had a payment.
I'm not asking a question. Texas has to
Please
do
do.
so. I will. Texas has to do so. Oregon right now, which has one of the highest error rates in the country, does not have to pay a single taxpayer dollar towards this program. You have designed a program in which you are incentivizing states to have a higher error rate. If you're a state, remember Craig, I'm asking Craig.
It's a transition plan.
She can answer if she'd like. If you are a state with an error rate of 10% or 11% or 12%, if you can get your error rate higher,
that's right.
Then under this bill, you won't have to pay a dime.
And you get, under this bill that came back today from the Senate, in fact, you get 2 bites at the apple over 2 years to get your error rate up so that you can not have to pay the cost shift for a period of time.
It's insanity.
It's insanity.
A state like Colorado or Missouri or Texas, the states that are trying to keep their error rates down and are doing a good job of it, they get penalized. Meanwhile, New Jersey, Oregon, Alaska, states with a high error rate benefit. Insanity. I don't, and maybe there's another Republican here, Chairman, and I know this is not outside of your respective departments. So, but if Chair Guthrie or Chair Ayrton or Chair Smith want to jump in to defend that particular provision, I don't. And by the way, before I give that opportunity, I don't know. We'll see if this bill passes in the House. But I can assure you that if it doesn't pass, if there are enough Republican members who say, you know what, this is a bridge too far, this provision is not surviving. It's not going to survive the sunlight of the next 48 hours. There's no way. I am calling it now. I cannot imagine that Republicans are going to say, yeah, we're fine with Portland paying not a dime for a state portion of SNAP. We're going to instead just make sure that we impose these costs on the states that are actually doing a good job.
Idiot. It did pass. House sends GOP's big beautiful bill to Trump's desk. That means that it so it doesn't go back to the Senate. It's just they're good to go. Will the GOP pass any other legislation short of I don't think we should consider this legislation. This is just the budget, really, right? Because technically, I don't even know if they've passed a formal budget. I don't know if I would consider this like legislation, right? Here's the funding for immigration enforcement in the bill to be spent through September 30th, 2029. Through September 30th, 2029, we've got $75 billion for ICE, $65.6 billion for CBP, $10 billion for DHS, $3.5 billion for state enforcement. Jesus. Over 2020, for over like 4 years, Jesus. Damn. With this vote, Congress makes ICE the highest funded federal law enforcement agency in history, with more money per year at its disposal over the next 4 years than the budgets of the FBI, DEA, ATF, U.S. Marshals, and Bureau of Prisons combined.